Hello, folks. There are two nuggets in this podcast with Lauren. One is the magic of marketing. I hadn't heard this until Lauren said it to me today, but it's the circus marketing metaphor. And if you want to zoom forward to that, and it explains why we get so overwhelmed with marketing using the metaphor of a circus. And it's one of the best things I've ever heard. There's also, we talk about the Operators Weekend and how that peer-to-peer, collaborative, everyone in the same room, on the same journey together, helping each other out, which is a lot of what we did in the 24th of February event, the Unreasonable Connection in London. Very much like that kind of energy we're bringing. So holding each other's hands as you journey through the sea of co-working and community building. And one of the most important things in here is the City Hall section that was in the Coworking Operators Weekend. There is how to build a downtown alliance to work better with your local authority or your local municipality or local government, whatever you want to talk. More in the show. Let's get into this with Lauren. Thanks very much for your time and attention today. Hello, folks. It's another swashbuckling episode of the Co-working Values podcast. And in my luxury Vigo studio today is Lauren. Lauren, what are you known for and what would you like to be known for?
Oh, great question. I'm not really known for anything because I'm a marketer. I have to be behind the scenes, but that is what I'm known for. I'm a content marketer. I'm a storyteller.
That's good. I think you're really, I accused you in WhatsApp the other day. You are the Anne Handy of co-working. So
that is not an accusation. That is a compliment.
Just before someone thinks that Deshawn found you on Fiverr, where did you get your chops done for?
Yes. So I have been a marketing professional for 25 years, for a long time. I started at a little brand called Reader's Digest, where I learned the art of direct marketing back in the 1900s. You may recall that time period where things were on paper. And then went to a couple internet companies during the .com boom of the 2000s, and then ended up at IBM for 13 years, where I was a technical marketer. But then went from writing really, really deep technical marketing work to being the editor of IBM.com, the homepage, where we would try and direct people through the site and do some content marketing there.
Hell's teeth, Batman. That is a big, complex job, isn't it?
It was a really good learning experience. And what's really funny about IBM is they kicked us out in 2005. They said, work from home. So I have been working remote for 20 years.
I actually probably should have tried beforehand. Do you know a guy called Louis Cherez, who worked with no email and worked for IBM?
I think so.
He's a mate of mine. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes, folks. This is really important. So I've known him 15 years and he is a no email guy. And I learned so much off him about social. And there's a little video he did in 2011. He's going, my name is Louis Cherez, which is also a famous footballer. I work for IBM and I don't use email. And phenomenal story. And he said, if I need to learn anything, I go to whatever the IBM intranet was called and say, I'm looking for a bar that sells vegan tequila in Amsterdam and, made of Lego. And someone would come back in 2 seconds. And if you emailed that around, no one would ever reply.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting. Did you, that is. So what was the other phrase? There's that catchphrase, which I love, which I always get wrong. It's no one ever got fired for hiring IBM or buying IBM. Is that it?
That's true. No one ever got fired for buying IBM. It was quite the place to work, but also a really good place to get out of the habit of using some tired language. I used to joke that if I wrote anything like leverage your legacy architecture, I needed to stop working.
Yeah, that's seamless integrations is what people say nowadays. Yeah.
All buzzwords, yes.
I want to talk about Operators Weekend because I can easily skew off into all the things that leading software companies use. So Operators Weekend, is it Operators Weekend?
It was Coworking Operators Weekend, yes.
Coworking Operators Weekend. This is like it's what South by Southwest used to be in 1998 of co-working. So what is it? We'll put a link in the show notes to all this, folks, but what is it and what's it all about? Which is nearly the same question, sorry.
Yeah, it's good. It's Jerome Chang and Jackie Latrongas created the Coworking Operators Weekend for 2025 out in LA. And they just invited operators to Jerome's space saying, let's have a small event. Let's not plan this. Let's not have bells and whistles. Let's just get together and talk, just the operators. And the CEO of Coworks, Sean Brown, he attended and said it was fantastic and let Jerome and Jackie know, I love this. And it was Jerome that approached Deshaun and said, well, do you want to do the East Coast version? And he said yes. And lo and behold, we helped organize the 2026 Coworking Operators Weekend a couple weeks ago, early in February 2026. And we had about 40 actual operators and managers come to a space that is based here in Raleigh called Raleigh Founded. And it was fantastic.
And I don't want to say what made it fantastic. What was the energy in the room? Because I that's what we're gunning for in our own events here in London. But
I think it was folks recognizing game. It was folks saying, I do what you do what I do, but how do you do it? And finding so much common ground and such enthusiasm for their own brands, for what other people are doing, for getting inspiration. We called it boots on the ground for a reason, because these are the people doing the work. These are not the consultants. These are not the vendors, even though Coworks is a vendor. We really let them talk to each other and created a panel and created this agenda of topics that were very operations focused. And they really needed it. They really enjoyed just watching them talk over lunch was fantastic.
So I've got the agenda open in front of me here, and there was the sounds very grown up, city as a strategic partner, which is something we talk about. It's a big topic in the UK at the moment, especially because there's a whole business rates thing, which is a whole podcast in itself. You can look at Jane Sartin, but we're encouraging co-working space operators to invite their MP, their member of parliament, into the co-working space and say, look, this is the value of a co-working space. And so many MPs don't even know what a co-working space is. And there's this relationship between the city and co-working spaces, which is just so important. And I think it's like how you articulate the value of your, I don't want to say building, building community. What would you say?
I would say it's the community. It's not necessarily the building. It's being able to discuss the economic impact that you are having on that local area and being able to say, this is the number of businesses we're launching. This is the number of people that are coming downtown to have lunch. This is the number of people who are using the parking deck. Raleigh, North Carolina does a great job of connecting to their co-working spaces and understanding the startup needs of these businesses and why the co-working community matters and why the startup community matters to the development of the city. So we had someone from the city on the panel. We had co-working operators on the panel talking about how they, communicate, how they collaborate, who to ask for, what words to use, what grants might be available. So it was really a great panel discussion.
Can you remember, and you may not be able to, like anything that came from the city where they were surprised about, like, oh, I didn't realize it was that? Because I imagine like what words to use is something that comes up a lot in that type of conversation from co-working to city. But is there anything that the city didn't realize?
Absolutely. I think one of the attendees spoke up about their local government saying that they could not show favor to a specific business and therefore couldn't collaborate with the co-working space. And one of the panelists said, well, create a downtown alliance. they can work with an alliance. And that kind of opened the door to a whole new discussion. Like, what does an alliance mean, and why does it matter for these co-working spaces? And so they were able to kind of outline, like, okay, yes, work with the local coffee shop, work with the local printer, work with folks that are on this, business corridor, and create an alliance. And then your city can work with that alliance.
That we can just hang up now. That's worth the. That's what we call a value bomb on its own, isn't it? Is there anything else on that, or should we? Because I've got this whole list of things I want to ask you about here.
Proctor, who's kind of one of the OGs of co-working, talked about just create a co-working day. Like, go to your government and say, this is going to be Raleigh Co-working Day, and they're like, oh, sure. And so it gets all kind of publicity, and other businesses talk about it, and just like ways to bring value to the government, to the local area.
I think there's so link in the show notes to European Co-working Day, folks, if you're in Europe. But I think there's a big co-working industry explaining what it does and its value to the local area is something we're always talking about in the London Co-working Assembly, and I think that's, if I don't know what this looks like, folks, but like if everyone got together for one day, on one of those things and said, this is what the economic value of and social value and all those type of values of a bunch of local businesses sitting in a building all at the same time,
yes,
generating their businesses and generating whatever they generate for the local area is really important.
So we put it together because what goes into what's called an impact report, and then how do you quantify the value you bring to your city? And that is, in this impact report, we say, like, collect this data, look at this data, and then present it. Like, this is the value that we're bringing.
I'm gonna jump onto here now because there's the Flock panel with Sam Shea, because the how to get a job in co-working is another hot topic for our folks. And there are, two examples is Urban MBA and Faceworks, which is in Lewisham. They are two co-working led not-for-profits that are focused on helping young people develop a career. And, probably when we were young, Lauren, we get a job in TGI Fridays on a Saturday, and then, but like getting a job as a young person now, especially with technology and AI and all these kind of things, is like so precarious. So, what came out of the co-working career panel?
It's so interesting to see what Sam is doing, because she's really identified kind of this drop off after the first 3 to 5 years. There's really where does that person go? First of all, the skill set combined with the right attitude is really hard to find and afford. But what are those? What are the skill sets you need for someone walking in the door versus what are you going to teach them? So, she was able to point out, like, we're missing kind of a pipeline of growth where someone knows, okay, if I get started in co-working, this is the direction I want to go. And so she's really doing a lot of work kind of to organize that and come up with these paths that make sense based on skill sets and identifying kind of like, okay, who are we missing? Who's missing in the room, and how can we get them in the room? And so one of the other issues that she identified and that the attendees also validated was the inconsistency in role titles. That sometimes they're hiring for a community manager, but what they really need is an operations coordinator. Or an event planner is also doing membership sales. These are two different skill sets. Why is this one person wearing so many hats? And so coming up with kind of a little bit more consistency and description of what these roles are was really important.
How does that play out in, like, there's a lot of people I spend time with, and there's one or two people run the business, and then they'll have a community manager. There's like sort of maybe 3 people on the payroll in the whole building, and then like an IT company do something. But like, what would that person who's not the owner, but they fall into that. It's an epic role, isn't it? Like
Really
they
is.
are
It's
event planner.
It's somebody who's very senior and has this really disparate experience. And so this is a person that's missing these leaders. And so that's kind of what Flock, Future Leaders of Co-working, is looking to create, is a real path to get people to that level.
There's more than one person I know who is around 40 and they just know how to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they're well paid, but they're like a community manager, but really they're like operations director, facilities director, event planner, like they're everything in one place. But it's their life skill that enables them to probably hold all that emotional energy on top of the, and they're probably really good at, Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, but they would never have started out as a career,
right,
building a career in a community as a community manager.
No, nobody comes out of college and thinks, I want to be a community manager at a co-working space. But they might think, okay, I want to work with people. I want to work with startups. I want to be in a dynamic environment. I want an office where I'm not sitting in front of a laptop every day. So those are the things that they're thinking about.
That was me. I would have gone to university before the internet to be a community manager. What would flow on? Can we drift into? Was there any AI there? There must be AI.
Oh, AI was huge. AI was a really good session, especially because there's so much fear around it that it's just, what is it? How is it going to change the way I do my job? Which roles is it going to affect? And so we had a really good panel that kind of made it very, very tactical and very focused. Samantha Reel was one of them, one of the panelists, and she asked the attendees 3 main questions about AI, which were really, everyone is scribbling, so it knew that was really important. But she said, what are you spending the most time doing? What are you ignoring that's high value? And what is messy and should be cleaned up? And AI can help you with those things. The other person on the panel was Taylor Mason, who came at it from a more content marketing and automation point of view, talking about how there's really, really low-level, shallow entry points to using AI on a regular basis. But his point was everything that you put into it, you'll get out of it. So if you don't train your AI, if you don't provide background information, you're going to get something very generic.
Yeah, I think all of that. There's another thing I've heard, which I've lived by, is don't ask it to do something you don't know how to do yourself. So for you and me, writing, is or whatever we use it for. Show notes is a great example. Made hundreds of show notes over the years, and I know what to look for. What do you think about that?
I think that, if you are doing something over and over and over, you can automate that. And AI is great at automation. It's also a great thought partner of like, I'm thinking about this. This is what I know. What else can I do? To explore options. But it's all about, what do I already know? If you don't know anything about it, you're not going to get anything out of it. I've heard it referred to as spicy autocomplete. Like, the AI is not really thinking, it's processing information. So you need to feed it the right information. You need to feed it information about your brand. You need to feed it information about your business. All of these things really, really matter.
That little bit you said there, I know what you mean. And I certainly don't want to sound like tech pro here. I am surprised at how many people who I think are smarter than me don't know what you just said means and how you feed it. It's like you need to cook your egg in the right type of pan. You kind of understand that, but so is that like a saucepan or is it a dustpan?
Yeah. Don't assume the AI knows more than you.
What are people, and then we'll move on from AI because you can go on about this forever. What are people in the room? What were without shouting out any names, like what are they most afraid of? Because it is scary, but what is most scary to these people?
I think actually there was a really good conversation about the way AI is going to affect their members. So it's not just how they run their co-working operations, but these startups and these freelancers and entrepreneurs who are doing one thing that's about to be incredibly disrupted by AI. And so there was concern like, is this going to change the makeup of our membership? So that was one thing that really garnered a fair amount of discussion.
I think that is one of the most important things to talk about. And it comes up a lot whenever we get Kofi and the Urban MBA folks together and we're talking about AI, after 45 minutes, it gets to that. And I think that is where because oh dear, it sounds like a doom podcast now. Like you don't know what's coming. If you think when was it, like November 2022 ChatGPT came out, like how there's so many things I was doing before AI arrived like it did. I just don't even do those things anymore. And like how it searches my Google Drive and finds me things. So I do a lot of research in Google Drive because when I used to go there before, I was like lost. And now I go, which podcast did we mention cheese and ham in? And it goes and finds them. And
such a good use of it because it's not costing you your creativity. You can then go and be creative with whatever it helped you find.
And I just can't imagine not doing that anymore. I know more about my Google Drive these days than I've done. I've had a Google Drive for 17 years now, and I've never known more about it. But what was there any other like big things that came up for you on the day?
Well, we had kind of an unstructured section called the Unconference. That was fabulous because people were able to suggest topics they want to talk about, and we had a moderator organize those topics. And one of the big ones was marketing, but we didn't really get into it as much because it's such a big topic. But, being able to focus on their specific requests and also having attendees contribute to the content. It wasn't just panelists. Everyone in that room was an expert on something. And so we were able to really tap into a wide variety of that expertise.
Can you tell me about the marketing thing? Because we deliberately don't talk about marketing anymore because it's like trying to talk about food.
It's huge. It's a huge topic. And the way I get people to think about it is through this circus metaphor. Have I told you that?
It just popped in my head, the film Big Fish with Ewan McGregor, but tell me about the circus thing.
So when people say, well, I want to market, I don't do marketing. I think, okay, what part of marketing do you want to do? What is the goal? And so we use this metaphor. This has been around forever. So of the circus, so if you have a circus and you went looking for the right town to be in, that is market research. If you then put up a sign that said circus coming to town this Saturday, that is advertising. If you put your sign on the back of an elephant and you marched it through town, that's promotion. If the elephant, which, has your sign on his back, accidentally tramples the mayor's car, well, that's publicity. But if the mayor then gives an interview to the local news and says, oh, isn't that funny? Well, that's public relations. Then if you decide, well, I'm going to march this elephant past elementary schools and specific neighborhoods that have young families, well, that's market segmentation. And then when people come to your circus and they buy tickets, that's called sales. And if you're the person that arranged all of it, you're doing marketing. So it's a huge, the tent metaphor works. It's a big tent. There's a lot of parts to it. And it's all about what you want out of it as to what you're going to do.
And what do you, when you're speaking to a co-working space community manager or owner and they're like, I've got to do marketing, like what would you, they're like a owner managed co-working space, because doing all of that, in fact, even though I know better, when someone says we've got to market this, my head still goes to the full circus, even though I know a quarter of those things and just don't do the others at all.
I would say, what's the goal? What do you want to achieve? Specifically, what do you want to achieve? Do you want to increase the followers on Instagram? Do you want to bring in more day pass users? Do you want to have more events hosted in the space? What is the end goal, and work backward from there? That's how you do marketing, because otherwise it'll be too overwhelming and you'll do everything everywhere and you'll say 1,000 different things once as opposed to one thing 1,000 different times.
Yeah, and there's what do you think about? I don't know whether I'm asking this now; it just popped in my head. What do you think about social media nowadays? Like, if you're that type of person, before just to rein the question in, like if you're if you're that independent co-working space owner, because I see people trying to be on every platform and Google Plus nowadays at the same time.
I would say, where is your audience? What channel do they use? Who do they trust and go there first? Are they YouTubers? Are they LinkedIn? Are they Instagram? Are they X? Where are they? And do that research. There's a great resource called Proctor that is by Rand Fishkin of Moz fame. I really trust him as a marketing expert. And Proctor is an audience demographic research platform. And so you're able to say, here's who I'm looking for. Where are they going? And go there.
We'll put a link in the show notes to that, folks.
Yes.
That is, I didn't know
highly
that existed.
recommend.
I thought I knew everything, Lauren. Again.
See?
He's I haven't watched his stuff for a long time, but he was really, really good. And, his company grew from like him doing that for doing quite well to incredibly well. And I like the way, I can't remember what year it was, he wrote about how he got burnt out doing everything.
Yes, his book, Lost and Founder.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. That is, I also think that doing something, like if I ran a co-working space, I would go all in on Instagram because I love taking photos and capturing things, but I wouldn't go, I can't remember what I wouldn't do Facebook. I hate Facebook, but doing the thing.
But what if you found out your members are all on Facebook?
I'd hire you to come and do my Facebook. Well, actually the thing, like Twitter used to be really, really good, and you would go to a conference and people would be hashtagging everywhere. And I keep every so often I keep going back to it. And I'm just very good at analyzing who's on what platform because I've got all these little gadgets to do it. And no one is on Twitter anymore. It is quite amazing how little co-working is on Twitter, but there's other things too.
Yes, there's Threads, there's Blue Sky, but it hasn't quite gotten to the point where people are relying on it as a channel. But, it's up to, who do you want to reach and what kind of bandwidth do you have?
There's a place called the Building Centre in Tottenham Court Road in London, and it's to do with people. We used to run a unconference called B2 Camp there. This is like in the olden days. And we would come out of the building centre and people would tweet. I can't remember the name of the pub. And there's one of the very early co-working spaces called Central Working, almost opposite it. And we would tweet something like, B2 Camp beers in, I wish I could remember the name of the pub. And like 20 people would appear from nowhere. And they weren't at the conference. They were just out in the West End of London. And they turn up, and I don't know where you'd be able to do that nowadays.
You'd have to be very careful and really understand, like maybe Snapchat, if people are using the maps. I don't know. I'm too old for Snapchat, so.
Yeah, and Foursquare. Do you remember Foursquare?
I do.
That was it. And I think you could tell how long you've known someone, because like the other day I was updating my CRM and there's all these people and it has their Google Plus and their big URL And I was like,
Yes.
that is the old days. Anyway,
Yes.
we're going off topic here. I'm reminiscing, and I miss Twitter, and that's why this gets quite emotional. But thank you for understanding me. Where can we track you down on social media? Where do you hang out the most?
Probably these days on LinkedIn. That is where I am the most.
If I'd asked you that 15 years ago, you wouldn't want to say that, would you?
I would not have said LinkedIn. Yeah.
Do you want to direct us to anything? We'll put a link in the show notes to your LinkedIn, but what else is there?
I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't suggest following Coworks. We do have a newsletter. I run the newsletter, so I try and make sure that we're spotlighting as many spaces and helpful stuff as possible. So, I'm a big believer in providing the value there.
And we can link to the Sean's podcast as well.
Yes.
So that was groundbreaking. So, folks, if you go to the show notes, I'm sure there's some more things we can chuck in there. And I love our show notes. And coming up, there is European Co-working Day, which is on the 6th of May. And I know some of you are not in Europe, but there's International Co-working Day too. And there is Ashley and Hector are doing the Co-working Alliance Summit, which is on the 3rd of June. And that is people who run events and alliances like the Co-working Switzerland and...
Yes.
What's another alliance? I've run out of alliances. Co-working Switzerland, on the Co-working Assembly.
There's several in the U.S. The Denver Alliance, the Atlanta Alliance. So there's city-based alliances. There's, kind of interest-based alliances. So, yeah, it's really great.
That's a really important part of getting stuff done at city level, as we alluded to earlier in this podcast. And also there is the LinkedIn co-working group, which hundreds of you listen to, hundreds of you visit every week, but you need to get in there, folks, and post what is going on in your co-working space or your alliance, and we can build up to all these things we talked about. So wherever you are in the world, be careful out there. It is a jungle. Say goodbye, Lauren.
Goodbye. Thanks for having me.